Hey everyone, welcome back to Data Driven Health Radio. I'm your host, Dave Korsunski, and my guest today is Bradley Davie from InBody. Bradley, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, sir. Pleasure to be here. I think you're doing some amazing things over there, and we appreciate all your support and encouragement for us and inviting us here today.
Well, we've been in the same circles, Heads Up and InBody, for many, many years. I see you guys at all the same trade shows that we go to. So we've got a very similar customer base. We've been threatening to do a technical integration for a while. That's hopefully finally getting started. But what I really want to cover today, Bradley, is first of all, for our audience listening, I'd like to educate them on the InBody scales and other devices, because I know there's more than just body composition. I'd mainly like to focus on the commercial units, but I think we should also explain the home units as well. And then where I'd like to spend most of our time is talking about how the data is being used in clinical practice and what types of practices are using InBody, what machines are they using, what are some of the metrics they can start to look at, how does the body composition stuff play into the programs they're running for weight loss and health optimization. And then also I'd love to really just kind of like talk about the business side. So if I'm a practice owner and I'm thinking of adding InBody and Heads Up into the practice, what does that look like from a financial point of view, from economics and stuff like that? So before we do that, I know you've been with the company for a while, so maybe you could give us an intro on Bradley and also an intro on InBody as an organization, and let's go from there.
Thank you very much. So, I've been into health, fitness, wellness for a couple decades now of my life. I started out in education and went to college to study exercise science and went on to be a PE teacher and a science teacher for a little bit. And that was back in Maine. And then I moved to California 13 years ago and I started working in personal training and gyms. And I came across the InBody while working at Lifetime. And at the time, it was one of the biggest accounts that we had, where they have them in 120 plus locations across the country now. And I got to use it for personal training. I was a metabolic technician, as well as working with dietitians and a lot of other blood work that we were getting there. So it was really cool to see that data integrated there. And then I was looking to upgrade my career and expand my experience in sales and marketing and business. And I took the job at InBody about 8 years ago. And since then, I've seen the company and experienced so much growth where today there's a lot of people that are really interested in data-driven health. And we've built a lot of trust in the marketplace from, Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, probably the majority of all professional sporting teams, medical clinics in just about every specialty, hospitals, just about every department. And I like to describe it like there's an illness to wellness continuum in healthcare. People that are sick and need to get better to people that are elite and they want to continue to perform. And our data can help you all the way along that continuum. And for InBody, we have an ecosystem of health assessment tools. So body composition analyzers, we have a series of those with kind of like if you're going to go get a new car, there's different trim levels of a car where we show a different amount of detail as they go up in models. You can also integrate that with an automatic blood pressure monitor where we can show your systolic, diastolic blood pressure, arterial pressure, pulse rate. And then you can also integrate with a grip strength dynamometer so we can show the quality of the muscle there as well as the quantity from the body composition analyzer. And then we have height stadiometers, all kinds of different accessories to support the implementation, and then a consumer version as well, where you could have a home scale or a home blood pressure monitor, and both the professional and the consumer models integrate together on the same cloud software and app as well. So a great solution of comprehensive data you can get in a lot of different places to be able to show progress.
Awesome. Thanks, Bradley. So just to unpack that a little bit, I first got into health optimization back in the 2011, 2012 timeframe. And I think I was reading Tim Ferriss's book where he talked about doing a Dexus scan for body composition. And that's something I'd never heard of before. So I found one. I lived in San Francisco at the time, and I went to a body composition center to get a Dexus scan. That was the first time I realized how much more information you can get as opposed to just the traditional bioimpedance scale that I was using at home. And what the Dexus scan really helped me understand was where the muscle and fat was distributed throughout the body. And it gave me a lot more information I could work on. Actually, that first Dexus scan, I realized I had a lot more work to do than I thought. And that's when I started experimenting with different dietary strategies. I used keto for a while, had some phenomenal results there. And then you just keep going down the rabbit hole of continuous optimization. But the InBody scales come in at a much more affordable price point, I would imagine, than the Dexa machines. They just seem to be something that is, first of all, also the physical space required. I've done both now, InBody and Dexa. So for those of who are familiar with Dexa, but maybe not InBody, maybe you can just help us understand the technological differences between the two, the differences in the footprint required in a clinic to host one. If there's differences, Bradley, in the way the data is measured, that would also be interesting. So if you could just help us maybe understand the difference, that will give us some good context.
So Dexa is using a dual X-ray technology where there's a large bed, probably 8-10 feet long by 3-4 feet wide, and you lay on the bed and an arm will scan over you and send beams through your tissue, and it's measuring the density of that tissue. So typically in the medical field, it's referred to as like a gold standard. Mm-hmm. Where InBody, we use a form called bioelectric impedance, where you would have somebody sit down, take their shoes and socks off, just be in lightweight clothing. We have them clean their feet and their hands, and then you step up onto 2 electrodes for each foot and 2 for each hand when you hold onto the handlebars. And small, safe currents travel through the body's water using the minerals and electrolytes to measure that. And it happens at varying intensities. So 1, 5, 50, 500, 2, 3,000 kilohertz of current travel through the body. And we're measuring the resistance at all those different levels. Some of the currents will stay in the extracellular fluid outside the cells in the blood and the skin and the lymphatic system, where others are strong enough to penetrate cellular membranes where we can get a resistance for the intracellular fluids in the bones and the muscles as well. So that gives us, compared to a DEXA, that gives us a way to directly measure water inside and outside the cells, which a DEXA wouldn't show. But also when we look at just lean mass and fat mass side by side, the Mayo Clinic just did a validation study for us a few years ago that showed 98% accuracy compared to a DEXA. So when they're, when we're ideal testing conditions side by side, the devices are quite comparable. And like you said, the pricing for a DEXA can be $100,000, $150,000 for a new one, where ours range from $7,000 to $30,000 for the body composition analyzers. And our footprint, we would say probably like a 3 foot by 3 foot square. And the scale would be able to fit in the center of that, and then your arms would be out to the side. And we can also connect it to a printer and have printer stands and other things like that around it. But for the scale itself, it's probably about the size of a normal office scale that you would have.
Yeah, I've done several, Bradley, and there's also the ability, if you're a business owner operator, where individuals can step on the InBody. They can log in effectively, which is based on phone number, is my understanding. So you can keep your historical information there. If there's multiple individuals in a clinic, they don't have to sign in. You can just step on it and get your printout. But you can also sign in, and then if that clinic has the InBody web account, then the data will also get pushed up to the cloud, where you'll be able to start doing more trend reports over time, potentially integrate that data into other systems. That's what we want to do here at Heads Up. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how the connectivity works, and then tell us a little bit about what happens when you log into InBody Web as a clinic owner.
So when the test is complete, the data is going to be stored on board the database, and we recommend a mobile phone number for an ID. But there's also when you connect your device to your Wi-Fi network and you connect it to a cloud-based management platform, we call that Look InBody Web, then it will ask you for a mobile phone number. So that's what's going to carry through to that web database. The machine itself will store up to 100,000 tests on it. And if it goes past that, it'll just rewrite the first ones.
Got it.
And then one path the data could take is that you don't have to connect to the cloud software at all. We could include a printer and you could have the results sheet print out and we can put your logo and contact information on that. So it's a standalone solution by itself, but you do get a 12-month subscription of the cloud-based software when you sign up at no cost. We don't even ask for a card on file to set it up. You just connect it, the data can go there, and you can see all the tests that have ever been done. And there's a lot of things you can do from there. If you open up a profile, you can add somebody's email address and email them the results. You can download a PDF of the result sheets. You can print them from your own computer if you want. There's a lot of reporting features in terms of we could group people together. Say we have somebody in a weight loss program or a hormone replacement program, or we're doing some type of a challenge. We can group those people together and run reports on that data separately, or the entire database of tests. You can send educational content to your members. You can, all the data will go to the InBody app as well. And the first time somebody tests, it's going to ask them if they want to download the app for free. And if they use the same mobile phone number that they did at the time of test when they signed up, their results will populate there. And you can actually communicate back and forth through messaging features on there as well. So
I didn't know that, Bradley. So if I've done tests in a clinic, then I could download the InBody app as the end user and see the data?
If they're connected to Look InBody Web. So
Understood.
not everybody always does because, oftentimes it's a standalone and they just want to use it in the clinic and it varies.
So if I've been to multiple InBody clinics, separately owned and operated, and they all have InBody Web accounts, and I sign in on the mobile app, would it pull down all of my results, or is it going to be isolated to one clinic, for example?
So the clinic would only see their results on their cloud web-based database, but then you on your app, you would see all of the results across any InBody that was connected to that cloud.
Right on. Okay, that makes a ton of sense. So these are pretty sophisticated machines. You mentioned for business owners, they range from $9,000 to $30,000. They can get much more sophisticated than just stepping on a scale at home. Could you take us through some of the most important measurements? I know there's a lot on the report, but maybe if you could just highlight some of the ones that are kind of like the top ones you should pay attention to. Obviously, there's the obvious ones, total mass, lean mass, muscle mass, but you guys can also report on intracellular water. I know you guys can do that. So maybe just take us through a selection of the most common biomarkers on the report that your clinic owners are looking at with their members.
Yeah, outside of weight and BMI, which are kind of being overcome these days, we can go further than that. And muscle, body fat, and water balance is going to be probably the key three. Then we can go deeper into that if you want later, but muscle is hugely important. After age 30, probably we start to lose muscle mass. So a lot of clinics are trying to help people maintain or build muscle mass so we can show that progress. We can also break it down by how much is in each arm and leg and trunk, and then even look at a overall rate of like a resting metabolic rate or a basal metabolic rate for the lean tissue in the body.
Yeah.
And then related to the body fat, we can show total fat, break that down into how much is in each arm and leg and trunk. And then within the trunk, we show a score for how much visceral fat there is internally in and around the organs. And then when it comes to water, total water, intracellular, extracellular, and then we actually show a ratio. Some people might call it like an edema score, but we're looking at how much of the water is outside the cells. And we call that an extracellular water divided by total body water. And we can show that for the whole body as well as for each arm and leg and trunk. And a lot of times that's where we can start thinking about the efficiency of the body and the metabolism, because water makes up so much of our body and it's responsible for movement of so many things throughout our body. So we get a snapshot of all of that each time somebody comes and tests, and then we can use that in consultation and conversation to kind of interpret it alongside of what is actually happening or how we're helping them.
Awesome. One example that comes up, Bradley, is from one of our mutual customers, and he runs a GLP-1 clinic. He does lots of things as in his practice, but I remember he said that he will have everyone step on the InBody scale in the clinic before they'll even get their GLP-1 prescription refilled. And the reason he's doing that is because he's keeping a very close eye to make sure that muscle and fat are coming off at the right rate. So even when you're doing general weight loss, like I remember when I did keto back in the day, I still use it from time to time, but there was one period where I pushed it too hard on keto, and I lost a lot of weight, but I also lost a lot of muscle mass. And that can happen in any weight loss regimen. One of the knocks on GLP-1 is that you may end up losing a lot of lean mass on your body. And it's never going to be a perfect process. There's always muscle that's going to come along for the ride when fat is dropped. But what the InBody was allowing this clinic to do was just make sure that the ratios of the fat and the muscle were coming off at the right rate, and then potentially personalize the medication dosage, or potentially make sure the individual is getting enough protein in their diet. So that's one example where it's being used to properly calibrate that body composition is changing properly. Because with any weight loss regimen, you can do things incorrectly. So that's a scenario where the clinic owner was looking at it as part of a weight loss program to make sure that the ratio of lean to fat is not becoming disproportionate.
Yeah.
Also, with a lot of our longevity clinics and a lot of our concierge medicine clinics, they're also using InBody to make sure that in the converse scenario, that the person is putting on lean mass. For example, in the exact opposite end of the spectrum, there are scenarios where we want to see that muscle mass is coming back on at a proper rate, or that we're preserving it as we age. So maybe, Bradley, what I'm saying is if you could pick a few use cases that you see InBody being especially prominent in, and just maybe give us some information on how the clinicians are using the InBody data in a couple of the more common use cases out there.
Yeah, I love your example of the GLP-1s and the keto diet. When we think about the weight, it can split into two parts at first, all your fat mass and all of your lean body mass, or your fat-free mass. Fat-free mass is made up of your bone, muscle, and water. So if we're just looking at how much fat-free mass you have, and we're looking at how much of that is water, it's typically around 73.3%. And about 36 to 39% of that is outside the cells, in the blood and the skin and the lymphatic system. And a lot of times,
hang on. Our non-fat mass, you said, is 73.3% water, and then the rest of it was actual lean tissue?
Well, the rest of it would be, we would call it dry lean mass. So that would be the protein and mineral content without the consideration of water. So if we took Dave and we got rid of all of Dave's body fat, and then we dehydrated him of all his water, what would be left would be your dry lean mass.
Yep.
But you have water that's inside and outside your cells and a little bit of body fat. So where I was going with that is, a lot of times when we say start a ketogenic diet or a GLP-1, or we start to manipulate our diet, water is what changes. So water, when I take away your carbohydrates, I'm also taking away the water and the sugar that are going to go back into the cells.
Yep.
And so the loss of lean mass a lot of times comes from the loss of water, not necessarily a loss in dry lean mass, but water that is filling up the cells. So maybe thinking of the cells like a grape or a raisin, where we're dehydrating the cells that way over time. So when clinics look at this, they really want to make sure we're maintaining that intracellular water. So we also show ratios for intracellular water to lean mass as well that are really helpful on our 580 model and 970 model too. And So I think that's been the most important use case related to, say, GLP-1s and weight loss and nutrition. And on the other end of it, if we're doing things like hormone replacement therapies, those tend to push a lot more water back into the cells. And from what I've learned in the marketplace, it creates a good balance for people that have balanced hormones and are on these GLP-1s too.
So let's talk a little bit about the intracellular water and also how that pertains to hydration and also how that can impact the results we get. So you mentioned on average the intracellular water is going to be about 73.3%. And so if I spend, say, 3 days before my in-body scan hydrating to the maximum, so I'm here in, I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. It gets pretty hot here, to say the least. But I carry around, in the summer months, I play a lot of sports outdoors. So I carry around this water bottle that holds 128 ounces of water. And I can plow through one or more of those a day. But let's say I'm just in a normal environment and I maximize my hydration. Let's say I just crush 128 ounces of water for 3 days before my in-body scan. How much variation do you see in that intracellular water number? Like, can you give us some reference ranges so that someone could know? Where I'm going with this is I'd like to be able to correlate my hydration levels when I step on there, but is there like a normal reference range, like 65 to 80 or something like that for the water that you commonly see? Like, how much variation is there based on how hydrated the body is at any moment in time?
It's tough to answer because water and the way we use and metabolize water is so different for people based on, like you're saying, environments and where you live. Or you could lose a lot of water just flying in a plane, or depending on your diet or exercise. All these things impact our body's water. I remember a story where Gatorade actually tried to look at the ratio between intracellular and extracellular water and see if they could pinpoint that balance. But they couldn't, and they ended up scrapping the study because there was so much variation in it. But having enough minerals and vitamins in our body, that's going to be important for it. Strength training to actually build muscle, to have the cellular space to put water into, makes a big difference in that.
Oh, interesting.
There's a lot of things that can cause cellular dehydration. Say, like if you drink alcohol, have a lot of caffeine, if you have an injury and there's swelling happening, females when they start their menstrual cycle, high sodium diets, all these things can pull water out of the cells. So it really varies. I guess the way we
So
would
what's the
think about it is,
lowest number you've seen? I know you do a lot of these at conferences, for example. Mm-hmm. So like, what would be on the low end of the readings you've seen for the hydration number?
Well, the first place we could look is how much total water do you have within your lean mass? And 73.3 is what we would say is a standard for a normal score there. So I've seen them down in the like 72.78. I've also seen, people that have a lot more water where they're maybe 74%. So there's kind of a range there with how much total water we're holding. But then we would want to look at how much of that is inside the cells or the bones and muscles, and then how much of it is outside the cells. And we look at outside the cells, we typically see a range of 36 to 39%. And my favorite hockey team growing up in Michigan was the Detroit Red Wings. And when I first started working here at InBody, I called the hockey arena. Strength coach answered, said he wanted one, and I worked in an on-site training for him. So I go out to the training.
That's a fun gig. You got to go to the arena and work. Awesome.
Yeah, and they had just built the arena. It was brand new.
Wow.
So
cold call.
The whole team is lined up, and I test them all, and they're also going through various other activities, agility, speed, things like that. And most of them were right around 36% or a little bit less of their water was outside their cells. Mm-hmm. Whereas if we're, at a conference and we're testing doctors who have diabetes, then we might end up seeing extracellular water around 39%. Somebody that has maybe some lymphedema, maybe it's a little bit higher. Heart failures would be even a little bit higher. So think of that as like a continuum of where that water is stored. And then if muscle mass is higher, it tends to be a little bit lower. If muscle mass is lower, then that score can be a little bit higher. But a lot of things can impact that. And I've begun to think about it and learned that it really alludes to the edema score that we show with the amount of extracellular water, alludes to the efficiency of somebody's metabolism and where it's at when we look at it in context of the rest of the data.
So you can start to get some indicators of metabolic health then based on these numbers. And what you're saying is that individuals who have are obviously carrying a lot more lean mass, relatively speaking, in terms of overall body fat percentage, you're going to see a lower percentage of extracellular water and a higher percentage of intracellular water versus those who may be less metabolically efficient, not carrying as much lean mass. You'll see it flipped around. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. I would actually also use this edema score looking at the extracellular water with my personal training clients as like a lie detector. And because there are things that cause cellular dehydration and water comes out of that intracellular space into the extracellular space, I could predict if they had, had a weekend of alcohol and higher sodium in their diet, because the score would go up from Friday to Monday. And you could even do tests like that. And I think with that type of sensitivity, it gives a lot of power to the practitioner to see what kind of changes are happening in the different modalities of therapy they're providing.
Yeah, heart rate variability is the other lie detector where you can find out, if people are really going to bed on time and taking good care of themselves. And then, like you said, the edema score. So maybe there's some algorithm we build, Bradley, where we look at HRV deviations and the edema score as our lie detector test for people, but we'll save that one for another day. Bradley, I'm interested in the business side of InBody. I'm a clinic owner operator, and I want to put one of these in the clinic. I presume that in the clinical setting, let's just take traditional hospitals, for example. You mentioned a few that you're working with, Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic. I would imagine they're just purchasing this as what departments typically inside of a traditional hospital are you finding the use of InBody? In
a hospital, we'll usually enter most of the time through like a medical fitness angle or a like employee wellness program. And then from there, it'll tend to span out across a lot of different departments, whether it's cardiology, sports medicine, rehabilitation, physical therapy, if they have chiropractics, lots of like lymphedema, renal care type of stuff.
Are there billable codes, Bradley, in those clinics for the use of InBody?
We do have CPT codes, and a lot of times it'll come when it's combined with some type of modifier, or it depends based on the state or the insurer whether they can get it through, but we do have many people that do.
Do you have a list of those codes by chance that are commonly used with InBody?
Okay. I will share that with you. And then
we'll put those in the show notes. If you're listening and your insurance participating, we'll include the billable codes in the notes.
And I also recently got a list of LOINC codes, if you know what those are.
Yeah, we do. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll send those over to you.
Yeah, we'll need those when we do our technical integration, because we'll want to cross-reference those. So that makes sense. And then outside of insurance medicine, Bradley, we see you at all of the fun conferences in longevity and biohacking and concierge medicine. We just saw you guys at the Rome Concierge Medicine Conference a couple weeks ago.
We just follow you around. That's what we do. Is we just.
I thought I was following InBody around, but whatever. And we finally, at least in Phoenix, we finally got to go for dinner and drinks and get yourself and your colleague out and had some fun. So I know we kept crossing paths, but it was nice to actually go spend some time outside of the exhibitor hall and hang out a little bit. So hopefully we can do more of that. But in the cash pay side of healthcare, the wellness side of healthcare, a lot of the practices that you and I collectively are working with, they're not taking insurance, and you're typically paying them a membership type of a healthcare, or you're paying them potentially cash on a per visit basis. So in those contexts, Bradley, what kind of practices are you primarily working with? And I guess what these practices are doing is they're just paying for it and absorbing it as part of their membership cost, and they're using it to show outcomes to help with retention and engagement, making sure the protocols work. So anything you can comment on what types of clinics you see outside of insurance medicine?
When we think about return on investment, there's a direct return on investment where you step on the scale, I charge you for it, and you give me money for that test. And then
Are some people doing it that way? They're billing by the test?
Sometimes. Let me frame this first. The other would be an indirect return on investment where we are yielding some return because of that. Maybe we're retaining somebody longer, or we're converting somebody into a program faster. And I would say within medical clinics, it's far more popular to use this as an indirect return on investment than a direct one. However, if somebody comes in and we assess them and then they come back and they don't join the program, they want to just get an InBody test done, we typically say you should have a per test charge, or maybe bundle of tests that you would have as a line item where you can say for a test it's going to cost you $50 or $100 would be kind of an average that we would see for that. Or if we bundle it together, it might give it a little bit of a discount rate.
Got it.
But a lot of times, people are implementing this as a assessment alongside of vital signs. So I want this just like I want blood pressure and blood work, and I want to be able to correlate some of this information to be able to show each time they come in what progress is happening. And I like to think about the result sheet itself as a sales and marketing tool, because if you're able to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes with somebody talking about these results, you can also interview them, and you can also place products and place services and then say, based on what we expect, this is where you could get. And it tends to be a tool that people might think about their sales and marketing budget for, in addition to like a capital expense that the business would use. But I would say most medical clinics nowadays, med spas, longevity clinics, anti-aging, they're not charging directly for the test most of the time because they want the information to help grow their business.
That makes a ton of sense. Okay. Now, a few more questions here, Bradley. I also saw you guys in Phoenix at the BioBiz Bash, and you had the whole rig set up. You had the height stand to measure my height. You had the blood pressure cuff, and you actually had a wireless grip strength device, and you had the InBody scan. So that's a really powerful combination when you can get all those biomarkers generated on one report. Can you just talk about that kit, and then for like the grip strength device and the blood pressure, can that work with all of the commercial units as complementary technology?
Absolutely. So our ecosystem with the body comp, blood pressure, grip strength, height stadiometers, we've got some other tools that are going to come out in the future too, but those all could work independently of one another, or they can all be integrated together so that you would start by measuring somebody's height, and through a Bluetooth connection, it would send that to the body composition analyzer. You could then go to the blood pressure and it'll send it to the analyzer. And then you show up there and it says, are these your measurements? You say, yes, it's going to pull it into that profile. You do the body composition test, and then it'll prompt you to do the grip strength. And the grip strength dynamometer, pretty simple. You would hold on to it and you squeeze it, and it tells you how many pounds of strength that you can generate. And that's a great indicator of overall predictor of like the quality of somebody's muscle, but also longevity. Grip strength's been shown to be a leading indicator of longevity, even things like heart disease or stroke or mortality. So great tool to be able to show that. Yeah,
we see all of our longevity clinics that use grip strength as one of their metrics. That's why when I saw your wireless device, I said, wow, that's a perfect bolt-on to the InBody ecosystem, because now you can just come in, do your body comp analysis, do your grip strength analysis. It's all charted, it's all stored, it's all available. So that was nice to see those peripheral products starting to come online as well. Next question, Bradley.
Let me make a bonus offer to your network too. If anybody comes on board and they want to get the body composition analyzer and they add the blood pressure monitor, we will give you a free height stadiometer and grip strength dynamometer, so you'll have the whole ecosystem. That's a pretty sweet offer. So if you're practice listening and you want to get in on that, that's a great offer. I tried all 4 of those devices at the most recent conference. They all flowed seamlessly into the printout that I got. So it's a really, really nice kit for longevity programs.
and gives really, really good baseline data, and then some really good ways to track progress over time, not just of body comp, but like you said, also indicators of strength and cardiovascular fitness as well. So, Bradley, if I'm a practice listening and I'm interested, could you maybe just step us through the spectrum from the lower end of the scale to like the Cadillac model, so that interested parties can know just what do I get as I go up in budget?
So the 270 model would be our first one. It's going to be the most basic one that we have. It's going to show you weight, muscle, total water, body fat. You get a segmental graph of that lean mass for each arm and leg and trunk, a basal metabolic rate, skeletal muscle index, and SMI score. And then there's history graph, so we can see what's changed from test to test. Then the 380 model is the next one. And that one's typically where most medical clinics will start, because it adds outputs for intracellular and extracellular water with the edema score. And
Gotcha.
then we also add segmental body fat, so we can see how much is in the arms and the legs and the trunk. And then it's the first one that shows the visceral fat score. I think most people say if they could take one output that we offer, maybe outside of muscle, visceral fat tends to be one of the most important ones that people want to see. So that one carries.
That's also a huge longevity indicator as well. So now you're starting to pull together lots of different longevity markers there in terms of body fat, visceral adipose tissue, grip strength. That one, visceral, is definitely one that I think is important. So you get that one with the 380, not the 270.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, fat. I think it gets demonized a lot of times as it, like, people want to get rid of it. And visceral fat is specifically one that we don't want to have. But fat overall has a lot of function in our body, and it helps us in a lot of ways too. And we're even learning about like brown fat that has some like metabolic capabilities too.
Yep.
So
cool.
We don't show that separation with brown fat, but the difference between the visceral and the subcutaneous we can. Then
and then up from the 380?
The 580 would be the next one, and has everything the 380 has, but now it's going to start to break down the body's water and the intra and extracellular water by segment. So we can see that by arm and leg and trunk. And then we show a couple other ratios for intracellular water to lean mass. We show a BIVA graph, which is like a nutritional assessment. And then the 970 would be our flagship model, where we add scores for total pounds of protein, minerals, a bone mineral content, total pounds of body cell mass. Then we get some other aggregate ratios where we're comparing, say, how much water to cell mass or water to weight, muscle to weight, so we can start to look at the data in a lot of different ways.
Awesome. Okay, that's great to know. And you said just ballpark range is about 9 or 10K up to 30K, depending on
270 retails around 7, the 380s around 10, the 580s about 16, and 30 for the 970. And
awesome.
We're definitely going to shoot you over a discount for your network as well if they want to jump on board.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. We'd love to share that as well. And then just kind of a little teaser for those listening. Heads Up and InBody are working on our technical integration. And through that integration, a practice will be able to link their Look InBody web account to Heads Up. And then we'll be able to synchronize all the metrics over to Heads Up. And you'll have them alongside all of the other biometric data on each individual. So we're just getting started on that. It's an integration that we're hoping to complete by the end of the year. Probably should have done it a long time ago, Bradley, but it's always a challenge with roadmaps, as you know, on both sides. So I think we're finally at the point where we'll be able to kick that off. So we're excited to deepen the partnership with you guys. There's just a ton of synergy in the market. So Bradley, in closing, is there anything else you want to leave our listeners with here, and then maybe some information on how people can reach you if they have more questions?
Yeah, I was thinking as you were sharing that, innovation can happen when something new is created, but it can also happen when two or more things that are already in existence come together. And I think you're a great example of a company that's been able to synthesize a lot of what is happening in the healthcare space to be able to make it relatable or actionable or help people to achieve greater success with the tool. Because a lot of times when people get our tool, they want to look at it in a lot of different ways that you're going to be able to show them.
Yeah.
And we're really excited about the partnership here and being able to continue to work with you. And I'm excited to help you expand that. And, what else new can we come up with? Like we were talking about the HRV alongside of the edema scores, or, what's out there maybe that hasn't been thought of that we can innovate on as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what some of the correlations are once we get our data glued up with your data. So we'll have to see what shakes out there, but I'm sure we'll find some interesting correlations with laboratory values, body composition, sleep, heart rate variability. So time will tell, but main thing first is get the pipes connected.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to listen in on some episodes of our podcast where I go out there and I talk to our customers in a lot of different industries to access insights and tips and tricks and tools and things like that, we call it Beyond the Scale. So we've got a YouTube channel for that if you go to the InBody's YouTube channel. And if anybody wants to sign up and connect here, we're going to get you a landing page, Dave. It's going to be InBodyUSA.com/headsuphealth. So that would let us know that they came through your channel here in this podcast, and we'd be able to help them best get set up.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Bradley, for taking time out of your day to come join us here. It's been a blast just working with you alongside all the trade shows that we're at together, and it's an honor to be able to be serving these amazing practices that you and I both serve, who are out there doing the work in the world, helping people to improve their health, which ultimately improves their life. So more to come between Heads Up and InBody, but thank you for sharing your expertise with us here today, sir.
You're very welcome. Blessings on your journey.
Right on. Thank you, brother. Have a great day. Signing off.
Thank you for listening to Data Driven Health Radio.